All right, guys, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible, and I'm going to hope. But, okay, so we're going to start talking about your in-class essay for tomorrow. And you know that it's a question one. You know that it's going to deal with characterization. You have a strong inkling that it's going to deal with characterization. So you need to know what characters are going on here. We only have two. We have Dante and we have Virgil. So we're going to look really quickly on who those characters are. If you've gotten to the bottom of this page here, the one I handed out in class today, the big five in literature, things that you are always going to think about. Characterization is number one. That's how we get close to a person, how we get close to works through their characters. Setting is number two. Point of view is number three. These are three main things that are happening in Canto 3. We have characterization. We have setting. It's hell. It's fun. It's a great setting. It's intense. Point of view. We have Dante's point of view, and remember, he's a little biased. So he's going to give us a lot of room to analyze and talk. All right, go back to Canto 3. So here we're looking at Canto 3, and it's important that you know these two characters. So let's start with Dante. Dante in this is a little wimpy, but you have to realize that he's just gotten into hell. He is literally at the gates. He's moving into hell as we speak. And so he reads this harsh inscription. Duh, it's harsh, Dante, it's hell. And he says, Master, this is a harsh inscription. What's going on here? So in the beginning, Dante is very inquisitive. He's sort of stunned by this intensity that he sees going on here in hell. And he's answered by Virgil. And so so Dante says, oh, well, that's still intense. And he hears sighs and cries and wails, coiled and recoiled on the starless air that spills his soul to tears. Like he feels pity for these people. He's overwhelmed and he begins to cry for them. He becomes incredibly confused. And then he says, holding my head in horror, cried, sweet spirit, whose souls are these that run through the black haze? Like he can't stand it. He literally holds his head because it's so much for him. And he talks about how their lamentations so hideously stun the very air. Like they sound so horrible. And then he sees them running and running and running. And he realizes that they're horrible people and that they deserve their punishment. So he calls them a faithless crew, hateful to God. So we move from being stunned to being sympathetic to being judgmental, like faithless crew, hateful to God. And he really feels these. He's going through this very shifting emotional phase. He becomes reprimanded by his master because he asks a silly question. He gets ahead of himself and he's reprimanded, so he feels shame and silence here. In silence and ashamed, he takes his reprimand like a man. And then he becomes scared when Charon won't let him pass. When Charon says, no, you may not ride on my boat because you're alive. He becomes worried here. So again, it's that emotional travel he's going through. But his master, Virgil, comes to his aid and helps him out and is trying to keep him down. And so Virgil starts to explain some things to him here in this last little part. And it's so much for Dante, like it's so overwhelming that his shattered senses leave him and he faints. So his characterization goes all the way through, like he is switching from one thing to another, and he's whipping back and forth emotionally so much that he gets whiplash and faints. Virgil, however, and remember, we only have Dante's point of view, so everything we know about Virgil, we know through Dante. And remember that Dante is a huge fan of Virgil, like he loves Virgil, thinks he's the best. So Virgil is very straightforward here. When Dante asks a question, Virgil answers it. Here must you put aside all the division of spirit and gather your soul against all cowardice. This is the place I told you to expect. Here you shall pass among the fallen people, souls who have lost the good of intellect. So he's being answered very meticulously, but then he's being encouraged, a gentle and encouraging smile. And he leads him. Virgil leads Dante. So he does correct Dante, but he does it in a nice way. Again, Dante asks, who are these people that are running? And Virgil answers him, these are the soulless people whose lives concluded neither blame nor praise. So he's very straightforward with this. Dante says, Master, what gnaws at them? He answered me, and in their blind and unattained state, their miserable lives have sunk so low they must envy every other fate. Again, question and answer, question and answer. Virgil is being very instructive here, very straightforward. We don't ever see him act on anything on this first page. He doesn't seem to do anything other than speak to Dante. He is like a pillar just answering Dante's questions. And then Dante says, Master, I long to know whose souls these are and what strange usage makes them so eager to cross as they seem the infected light. At which the sage, all this shall be made known to you when we stand on the joyous beach of Archeon. And I cast my eyes down, sensing a reprimand in what he said. So he says you need to be patient. This is the one time we see Virgil sort of act out a little bit, and it's not even that harsh. I think Dante's taking this a little personally. But then when Charon refuses to let Dante across, we finally see Virgil step up and do something other than answer a question. And Virgil steps up and says, Charon, bite back your spleen. This has been willed where what it willed must be, and it is not yours to ask what it may mean. And so he actually stands up for Dante here and makes Charon sit down, and they move along their business. And Dante asks another question, and now Virgil's going to get into the actual description of what's going on. And Virgil's going to be very straightforward, and he says, my son, the courteous master said to me. So we get Virgil again here. He's going to say, all who die in the shadow of God's wrath converge to this, and every clime and country, and all pass over eagerly, for here divine justice transforms and spurs them so their dread turns wish. They yearn for what they fear. And it overwhelms Dante, and this is one of the things that makes Dante pass out. But Virgil is very stoic throughout this entire thing, very strong. He doesn't have a whole lot of action going on. He is exactly what Dante needs him to be. He's that pillar, that strength. And if you don't know what stoic means, you need to look it up. Stoic, that's an I. All right, so let's move on to this part here, because I'm going to try and be as fast as possible. I handed this out in class. Now, one thing that you're going to need to know is the difference between Dante the author, poet, and Dante the character. Please make this very clear. You can do that by referring to Dante as the poet or the author, if you mean poet and author. If you're talking about the guy writing the thing, say poet or author. If you're talking about the character in the story, then say Dante. All right, now, many of you use diction when you write an in-class essay. Please use something other than just saying diction. Diction just means words, so congratulations, you're telling me that the author uses words. What words does Dante use? What words is he choosing to address Virgil? Is he speaking respectfully? Is he speaking politely? Is he using descriptive diction? He uses a lot of adjectives, and the descriptions that happen in Dante's Inferno are pretty intense. If you look back here, we talked about this section in class where their faces are streaming with bloody gouts of pus and tears that dribble to their feet to be swallowed there by loathsome worms and maggots. It's pretty awful, okay? It's pretty terrible. That goes back to setting, by the way, if you're going to talk about setting at all. All right? Imagery, so much imagery. Please realize that imagery is not just visual. It's choking clouds, it's intense smells, it's screams, all of these things that assail Dante's senses. For instance, right here, where he says, voices, hoarse and shrill, and sounds of blows all intermingled, raised in tumult, pandemonium that still whirls on the air, forever dirty with it, as if a whirlwind sucked its sand. So the sounds that are going on in the air are so horrible and so confusing and so overwhelming, it's like a whirlwind, it's like a sandstorm. They are physically assaulting Dante's senses. And again, that whole thing about the pus and the worms and the maggots, that's really a lot of imagery that's deliciously wonderful. Do not worry. Language. How is Dante speaking? He's very, very formal. He's very nice. He doesn't sound like a grown man. He sounds like a student, which is a good thing for him. Irony, metaphor, organization, syntax, allusion, symbol, figurative language. I would not worry about these for your essay. These are not going to help you at all. They're not really where your focus is going to be. Point of view, however, is one of the big three. So when I say point of view, we know that this is Dante's story. Dante Alighieri, the poet, is writing this. Dante, the character, is relating it to us. We are with Dante on this journey. Remember, he starts our journey. We are with Dante on this. So it's kind of natural that we don't see inside Virgil's head. We don't know what Virgil's thinking. We don't know what's going on inside Virgil's spirit. We know what's going on with inside Dante, and he is losing it slowly but surely. So, point of view. Why does this matter that we only see Dante's point of view? Remember, what is his purpose? What is he trying to get across to us? Remember also that Virgil is dead. So he's a ghost. Virgil's already been assigned to the first level of hell. There's no saving Virgil, really. But Dante is still alive. Dante can still be saved. So again, what is Dante's purpose? Why is it necessary or important that we see it from his point of view? And what does Dante's view of Virgil also tells us a lot about Virgil. How Dante reacts to Virgil tells us a lot about Virgil. Remember your SATDO. S-A-T-D-O. What does Dante say? How does Dante act? What is Dante thinking? What is Dante described as? What do other people say of Dante? What does Virgil say? How does Virgil act? What is Virgil thinking? We don't know. This is a mystery. How is Virgil described? What do other people, Dante, say about Virgil? Don't worry about your theme that's going to come across. Don't worry about your inference, connotation, denotation, assertion, main idea. You're hopefully going to get that. So if you're looking here on the back of this sheet, remember we talked about writing a thesis statement way back at the beginning of the year, like it feels like it was a long time ago. You're going to say in the Inferno written by Dante, in the epic poem by Dante's Inferno, work it out. The tone. What is Dante's tone throughout this entire piece? You can use a lot of words. You can use several words: stunned, overwhelmed, whatever you need. What is Dante's purpose? What is he trying to teach us? What is he trying to get across to us? It's probably going to relate to the tone. So if he's overwhelmed and confused, there might be something going on here. All right? Your paragraphs. You need to choose two things. So two things from the back of this sheet to focus on. Is that going to be tone? Is that going to be point of view? Is that going to be imagery? Whatever you need to do. So if you're going to do tone, you need to think about Virgil's tone and Dante's tone. What is Virgil's tone? You know, he comes across in a very specific way. What is Dante's tone? He comes across in a very specific way. If you're going to do imagery, you need to mention that since we only get Dante's point of view, we only get what Dante thinks is interesting. So we only get imagery through Dante. Dante fixates on the horrors of hell. Like, he looks at every little thing like he's a kid in a candy shop. He's like, oh, what's happening over there? And he describes all of it. Oh, what's happening over there? And he describes all of it. It's like he's trying to do as much as possible, and he's overwhelmed by these things. He doesn't describe Virgil at all. Not what Virgil's wearing, not how Virgil's acting, not what Virgil's doing. He is honestly having an ADH moment, focusing on all of these things going on around him. And so we get a characterization of Virgil through that. We get a characterization of hell too. Like, hell is a setting. It's an intense place, obviously. And lots of weird things are going on there. So if I were going to make a thesis statement, I would probably write something along the lines of, in the epic poem by Dante Alighieri, The Inferno, or in The Inferno, an epic poem by Dante Alighieri, Dante and Virgil are characterized through blank and blank. And the purpose of this is blank. I might say that if you're going to talk about tone, one key thing that you can look at is the phrase abandon all hope. That sets the tone right there. So abandon all hope really shakes away any resolve you have at a happy ending. The excerpt from Dante Alighieri's epic poem, The Inferno, powerfully illustrates the transformative powers of hell. Virgil grows in stature, becoming this strong individual. Dante seems to weaken as he relies more and more on Virgil's help. But Virgil has this commanding tone, and Dante has a submissive one. So there's a lot you can do there, and I am running out of time very, very quickly. But if you need to go back through this, please go back through this. If you need to flip around to the other side, take a picture of this, or pause it on this to get some ideas on what you need to focus on, then do that. If you have any questions, email me, and bring Canto 3 tomorrow for your writing. Goodbye.